thinking that social media will be the best vehicle for practice growth is a pretty myopic view. It can be for a very few among us. And for every Grant Collins, there are hundreds who try to do that and thousands and fail at it. To really be successful at today's social media, you have to have star power. It is about the short form videos that require a lot of creativity. You have to be good on camera. You have to be creative. You have to know how to edit, or you have to outsource those things. And to be frank, as you alluded to, very few among us are built for that.
Hello there, everybody. For those of you who don't know Dr. Fagala, I'm allowed to tell you his story in just a moment. He runs, in my opinion, the best podcast / show in orthodontics. The amount of energy, effort, production value that goes into it. I've said it many times. He really is sort of the Jimmy Fallon of orthodontics because his show is so entertaining and so unique, and you do a great job with it, Kyle. So you may not be a Jimmy Fallon fan, but
yeah, I'm not. Yeah, could you refer to me? Well, I'll take David Letterman. I love David Letterman. I'd prefer Johnny Carson, but you can call me what you wish.
I'd like to call you Johnny Carson of orthodontics, although
that'd be great.
We just lost half the audience because remember, hopefully the demographic for this is relatively younger orthodontists. Anybody can listen, but I would question how many orthodontists who've been out of school for anywhere from in residency to 5 years out have ever even seen an episode of Johnny Carson.
Well, I mean, I was born in '84, so I remember watching his final episode. That was like kind of a big cultural, watershed moment, or was it a water cooler moment? Was it both? I have no idea.
It was both.
Yeah, idiomatic indeed. Yeah, you can call me what you want. Just don't call me, who do I not want to be?
Jay Leno.
Jay Leno. Don't want to be Jay Leno, that's for sure.
He is the Jay Leno of our generation of orthodontists. But he really has contributed to the profession in a huge number of ways. Many of you know him through Neon Canvas, the company he founded with his partner, Alex Rasmussen. And it's a great company for SEO, websites, reputation management, a whole series of things that it does. And I'll let him talk more about that in a little bit. And then he sort of moved away from just SEO and being the internet guy or the website guy to somebody who really has a lot of wisdom related to running a practice. He runs Saddle Creek Orthodontics, which are two successful orthodontic practices in the Memphis area, Germantown, and I don't remember the other one.
Collierville.
And so I'm just thrilled to have him here. He's a friend. I've been on his show a few times. He's been on our show a few times. And it's really good to kick this off with you, Kyle. So let's start. I gave you a little bit of an intro, but give people a little bit of a background about you so they really understand who you are.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn, and thanks for having me on. Yeah, this will be fun. Can we tell people that we're refilming this? Is that okay? And it's my fault.
Yeah.
I take ownership for that.
No,
so I've done
technology.
How many podcasts collectively have we done? It's in the wee 100s, right?
Well, I've done. I think the Orthopreneurs is at like 350, somewhere around there.
Okay, so 350. I've done like 50 episodes of TDO Live. I've done probably 50 music podcasts. So collectively, let's call it an even 500.
Yeah,
and I have never had the issue that I had the other day. My camera was heating up, and so now I have a fan attached. So I have one fan in the room with me.
I've always been a fan of yours.
Yeah, I know, right? Maybe two. So anyway, we've already lost the whole audience. Now that they're all gone, we can get on with this. So my quick story is I went to dental school thinking I would be a dentist. I happened into orthodontics thanks to my wife, Anna, who worked in an orthodontic practice, and it is a perfect fit for me. And so we're going to join a practice, and if you're a young orthodontist, you may have a story similar to this, but it was a sure thing until it wasn't. And then we were left with, well, we want to stay in Memphis. We like it here. We just had our first child. And what do you do when you have no options? Well, you say, I guess we'll start our own. So we spent the last year of residency at Tennessee, which is a great residency. Go Tennessee. And we planned to open the practice knowing nothing. Nobody in our family was in business, certainly nobody in orthodontics or dentistry. And we just asked a bunch of questions and leaned on the advice of those wiser than us. And opened it, 0 patients day one. And my only experience with marketing was from managing a band that I was in. So I always played in bands. I'm a drummer still today. And I get to drum more today than ever before, which is a real blessing.
That's awesome.
But when Facebook pages launched, like literally the day, I was on there for my band, the Sheriffs of Nottingham, to get like the special, facebook.com/pages/the Sheriffs or, whatever it was. And that's a real barn burner URL right there, But anyway, so I understood how all that worked. And so when I jumped into the practice, what did I think? Well, I know I can manage and market this with social media. I knew nobody. I did not grow up in this area. So, I mean, when I had zero patients, I mean, I had zero patients. And so we used social media. Through that, I met Alex at another company. And eventually down the line, as the practice grew, and it grew not just because of digital marketing, and I'll talk about that a little bit today. I think there are some things that you should do with digital marketing. There's also obviously a lot when it comes to marketing that can help grow your practice. And some marketing things kind of come and go, and they have, a time and a place, and then you move on to other stuff. But for us, digital marketing has been a mainstay. It's a real evergreen way of creating new patients in our practice. And so then Alex and I launched Neon Canvas about 8 years ago, and that has grown to be a huge thing, and it's been really fun. And I say fun because it gives me an opportunity to kind of lean back. When I was a young teenager, I would build websites. I was on yearbook, newspaper. I loved storytelling before I really realized how that would benefit me later. And so you spend, 10 years of your life in college, dental school, orthodontics, learning stuff that at least for me was not my favorite stuff. Like I remember botany. Hated botany. There's nothing about it that was interesting to me. Maybe you're a botany enthusiast, real Neville Longbottom, as it were. But I did not find it interesting whatsoever. But I love storytelling. I love marketing. I love all that. And so to come back into that's been really fun. So those are my two lives. What other questions do you have?
No, I think that's good. Thanks for coming on the show, and just
for sure.
have a great day. So let's
see you later.
Let's jump into probably the one topic that'll take the most time, because I want to talk a little bit when we get a chance about Google Ads, reputation management, SEO, the kind of stuff you do at Neon Canvas that you do really well. But let's start with social media, because I think that's you had a lecture not long ago. I forget where it was. I don't think it was at Summit, where good times, bad times, I've had my share.
Yeah.
Right. Where was that one? Do you remember?
So I did that in two spots. I did that at Orthodontic Pearls, and I did that at Orthopreneurs.
Right. I couldn't remember if that was the title of the one you gave, but at the end of the day,
it was actually Good Leads, Bad Leads. I know I've had my share.
Good Leads, Bad
Leads.
Leads. But I'm thinking about the original song.
No, of course you are. Yeah, as you should.
Yeah. So I wish I could take that lecture title and just turn it a little bit, pivot, and turn it into the experiences I see of our peers on social media. Right. I see really good, and I've seen really bad. I've seen embarrassingly bad. And that comes in all flavors, right? Embarrassingly bad can be somebody who just doesn't know what they're doing, or in my opinion, and I am certainly not a professional prude, right? Where I think that orthodontists shouldn't be, advertising and stuff like that.
You're an amateur prude, indeed.
Yeah. No, I think I'm a professional at this one.
A prude hobbyist.
I'm a prude
Continue,
hobbyist.
sorry.
Yeah. So it's anything goes. I'm really open-minded, but I think I see so many people trying to do things to pander to the audience that is so not their culture. And if it is their culture, I pray to God they keep that culture at home, not in the practice, right? And they're doing stuff to get the likes. And I want to dive into that later on about what we really know about these things going on and how we get successful social media. So start first, if you don't mind. And if somebody has a younger practice, and they say, you know what, I'm going to just jump on TikTok and Facebook and Instagram, and I am going to do what Grant Collins, who, by the way, you and I both agree is an amazing at storytelling. And he was early on TikTok, which allowed him to really grow that footprint really well. But there are really good ones out there. But what are your thoughts on somebody who says, I'm just going to be Grant Collins, or any number of people we can add after that, and I'm just going to grow my practice that way. We're going to get reviews, and that's all I'm going to do. And I'm going direct to consumer, baby. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, there's a lot of thoughts I have, and I'll try to we'll get through all these things as quickly as we can. I know we'll get through them. Yeah. Here's the thing I would say is that I think that thinking that social media will be the best vehicle for practice growth is a pretty myopic view. It can be for a very few among us. And for every Grant Collins, there are hundreds who try to do that, and thousands, and fail at it. And I guess I would say it like this. To really be successful at today's social media, you have to have star power. It is about the short form videos that require a lot of creativity. You have to be good on camera. You have to be creative. You have to know how to edit, or you have to outsource those things. And to be frank, as you alluded to, very few among us are built for that. Okay. And you have to build a platform. And a lot of that comes in, to be honest, in getting in at the right time. And there was sort of, the window was open on TikTok for a little bit. And in most ways, it's probably closed. The window for Instagram has since closed in many ways. Okay, there's always exceptions to that. But, those that have moved the needle for their practice growth with social media, I would assume it's a pretty small number relative to the degree of attention that it garners when it comes to marketing. Now, when I was in the shower this morning, about 15 minutes ago before this lecture, I coined a term, and I think it's relevant to this, and I'm calling it Doctor Time marketing, okay? And what I'm getting at is that I think marketing, like a big, centering concept, is Doctor Time marketing. From your meeting, that idea of money comes and goes, but time only goes. Yep. And you will find that when I started my practice with 0 patients, what did I have a lot of? I had a lot of time, didn't have a lot of money. But there will be a point at which in your practice, whether you're an associate, a partner, an owner, whatever, where time will be the most valuable currency. Amen. And in that sense, Doctor Time marketing is what you want. And social media is very, very, very expensive when it comes to time, if you're going to do it well. Yeah. And then the other thing I see, and I'll end with this and we can jump into the next thing, is I see a lot of people that don't want to do it. And so they're sort of reluctantly diving into this thing and doing it and trying to copy trends and do something just like someone else did it and doing it so poorly that I don't know that it's helping anyone. It's certainly not helping them. And so my general guiding principle for life is if it fills your cup, do it. It does not have to build your practice if it fills your cup. But I feel like for most people, it's emptying their cup. And then why are you doing it?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, think about our podcasts, right? They take a lot of time.
They
what
do.
we're doing right now takes time. We could be doing other things, but we enjoy this. Even if it's not you on the other side of this camera, and I really love spending time with you, if it's not you on the other side of this camera, I still like this. I like the storytelling. I like the production. I like learning from people. And I do this, even if there's no listeners, there's a value to me emotionally and, mentally to be able to do this. And I think all too often people try to do things, that aren't what they are. Right. And there's 2 ways to look at that. One is, I'm going to get on social media every day and I'm going to do this, 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 and this. And they don't like it. And they do it just because they want to get followers. And then the other ones who are, me and my team or my team are just going to sit and do the latest TikTok dance. Right. And do you really think this is getting you new patients? It's not, it's generally not translating over to building your business in any way. So A, don't look like an idiot when you do it. And B, recognize, could your team have been delivering baskets to a GP at that point? Right. Instead of a half an hour of that, could they have gone and could your lead have an assistant? One of your team had a lunch with a TC from a general dentist's office in the same time. Right. Which is maybe more productive. You know where I'm coming.
Yeah, I do. I would say one man's idiot is another man's, favorite person. So I think some of this is subjective, and I do think that even TikToks that make me cringe, and it sounds so judgmental, and I don't mean to sound judgmental because people were judgmental of me when I was using Facebook to market, and I think each generation looks down on the one that comes after them, obviously. So I don't mean for it to seem like that. Again, if it makes you happy, it can't be that bad, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Or it can be. It could just be a waste of your time. Again, if it fills your cup, do it. It doesn't matter. If it's fun for you, it's fun for your team, it's fun for the few patients that see it, great. And I do think people have built their practices doing these things. I'm just basing it from an analytical standpoint. When I look at the number of followers that a lot of these accounts have relative to the number of likes and engagements and comments they get, you can just pretty much know this is only accomplishing so much. And so the segue we'll make here in a second probably is, okay, what are the less sexy and less shiny digital marketing vehicles that actually do produce new patients? Because at the end of the day, it's all vanity, especially if it doesn't fill your cup, if it doesn't build your business.
Exactly. Like DJ Quick out of Compton used to say, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense.
That's
It's a great song. I love that title. But you see
That
what
is
Kyle did there? He turned OrthoIgnite into the TDO, the digital orthodontist. He's like, and we'll segue in just a moment.
Well, it's hard to not host. I know you know that.
I love that. I love it. You take over, man. I'm happy to be your guest today. But you're right. Let's go into other ways that we know how to build our practice. Digital, analog, however you want to talk about it. So let's assume you're doing something for social media. You're there. You've got a Facebook page, an Instagram page, maybe even a TikTok page, so people can just at least find you and know who you are. What are some other great things that you can be doing digitally speaking?
Yeah. And first, I'll just say, like, your voice, your platform, your style on Instagram at best reflects who you are and the things you like. So I have 2 Instagram pages for orthodontics. I have my own, which is at Memphis Braces. Go follow me. And it's mostly just my life, because my belief is that most people, they engage best or they connect best with those that share interests with them. Like, obviously. Okay, so what's in the supermarket checkout aisle? It's all these garbage magazines about vapid people who are, highly consumeristic, because so are we. Okay, at the end of the day, there's a scathing cultural commentary for you if you wish, and that's what sells. But that's human interest. That's what we like. That is our capital is a culture right now. And so what do I like to do? I like to play the drums. I have kids. I like pinball. Like all these things. And then 10% of the time I talk about orthodontics because I am an orthodontist. And believe it or not, that does engage with people. And people are 3 times more likely to buy from you when they think that they know you or they have a relationship with you. And so in that sense, social media is very powerful because it's a way to tell your story and to connect with people. And when people come in the practice because they saw us on Instagram or Facebook, they are more likely to buy. So I do want to say that. So I don't want to like poo-poo on social media. It's very powerful. But it doesn't mean that me, Kyle Fagala, a near 40-year-old white male, needs to be doing TikTok trending dances, because that would be terrible, right? It would not be good. I would not enjoy it. So that's kind of what I'm trying to say. What are some other things that you can do that are certainly less sexy? There is no doubt that, with very, very few exceptions, the number one best way, digital marketing-wise, to get patients into your practice is being number 1 or number 2 on Google when people search. 85% of people use Google when they want a question answered related to a service offering, a la orthodontics. And they're going to see in 3 different locations your practice potentially. I love analogies, and I worked on this from the last time we filmed, and I want to take you back to the time when a TV had 12 channels roughly. Do you remember that time?
I remember. I remember when it had 4 channels.
3, yeah, or 4.
We had
right?
ABC, NBC, CBS, and PBS, and that was it.
Right. So we talk about those sort of being like monolithic eras effectively, but let's say you have 12 channels. Think of Google in that way. Okay, right. Channel 1 is the ad section. Very powerful. Channel 2, that's the map pack where 3 to 5 locations are shown, and Google reviews kind of factor into that. The next 10 channels are the organic results in order. And actually, I should say, the most powerful channel, or the one that turns on, when the TV comes on, would be the first result on Google rankings. And we know that. There's analytics around that, where people click and so on. But suffice it to say, if I can be on 3 or 4 or 5 of those channels, that makes it way more powerful for my practice.
It's like ridiculousness. It's on every channel all the time.
Why?
With Rob Dyrdek.
Rob Dyrdek, yeah. And the girl that just, all she does is laughs. That's all she
Chanel
does.
West Coast. But by the way, just a quick aside, I got to tell you, my family, we're addicted.
Chanel West Coast, comma Chanel. Indeed.
We're addicted to it. I can't help it.
It's funny.
It's just Brim. I'm just saying, I watched, just as a quick aside, I once turned it on and watched it, and my family walked by like, what a freaking idiot. What a stupid dummy. Why is he watching this crap? And then one by one, I lured them in.
One man's idiot.
Now it's on TV. Everybody in my family stops. Me, my wife, my grown kids, we sit, we watch ridiculous like for hours. And here's the crazy part. One man's, what did you, one man's idiot is one man's.
It's another man's favorite person. I'm sure there's a better way to say it.
Sure, but just think about this guy, Rob Dyrdek, and like Mr. Beast, right? Rob Dyrdek is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Hundreds of millions because of what he did. And there's a great example of a person leveraging something they love doing, being passionate about it. And, he wears his hat brand on the show all day long where he sells his hats. It's a brilliant idea. But anyway, sorry. I interrupted you so rudely with ridiculousness.
No, I was going to say, and for every Rob Dyrdek and Mr. Beast, there's about 1 billion others that aren't Mr. Beast and Rob Dyrdek. So, so for the rest of us commoners, I think it's better to be a little more strategic and analytical and realistic about our efforts. Again, Dr. Time marketing, okay? That should be the guiding principle, is that time is your greatest currency. So use it wisely. And I think lean into your personality. I don't like doctor lunches. I do not want to go to lunch with another dentist, so I don't do it.
I agree. I don't do them either at all.
It's a lot of time. That's an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. I mean, and then the time that I have to worry about having gone to it, that's a good 5 hours of my life where I have to be anxious about this thing. So I want nothing to do with that. So I want things that are largely automated and that, yes, cost money, but they produce a lot more. So to come back to the TV analogy, I want to be on as many channels as I can. And one of my favorite things to say is that the best place to hide a dead body is on the second page of Google search results. So there is a place where your channel shows up. And then, maybe past the 12 channels, there's the ones where you have to just get the rabbit ears just right to be able to see sort of a squiggle vision version. And you don't want to be there if you're following with the analogy. So knowing that that's the case, it's very, very, very important to get there. Okay. So do you want to talk, what of those aspects would you like to discuss?
Any of them. Let's start wherever you want, man. You're the expert.
Let's start with ads. Okay. So I think ads are great, but we know that people don't click on ads as much as they click on organic search results. Now, it is to Google's increasing benefit to get more clicks on ads than on organic search results. Now, ultimately, they want a platform that people want to go to because they think it's going to feed them good information, but also simultaneously, they want to collect as much ad revenue as possible. Right. But we still know that fewer people click on the ad section than click on the organic search results section, okay? But are they informed by the placement of your practice in the ad section before they go find you also in the organic search results section? And I would say yes. Here's the secret, I think, to Google Ads, and I don't think it's that complicated. You want to be showing up in the ad section all day long, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, if possible. To do that, you have to have an optimized ad campaign for a multitude of search terms, and you need to have a budget large enough that you stay throughout the day. If your budget is $5 a day and it costs $5 in your area of Dallas for every click, when will you be hidden? Probably 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning. So that means there's many hours in the day where you're not showing up. So of course, you need to increase that budget. And it's not that complicated. I mean, it's really not. Like, you just need to look at, okay, on these days and this past month, here's where we were hidden and when. We need to increase the budget or have a flexible budget. I mean, there are more intelligent ways to do this. This science is always evolving, but at the end of the day, it's pretty simple stuff. Like, we're not trying to pretend like this is so esoteric and complicated, but it does require an expert to do it.
Can I ask a question while you're on that?
Of course, yeah.
So, it's sort of a softball question, but everybody knows a guy. Everybody knows a guy.
Oh, I know a guy.
I know a guy. I grew up in New York, man. I know a guy.
Yeah, I know a guy.
But everybody knows a guy or a gal who does this stuff, right? Oh, my brother's cousin does SEO.
Yep.
My brother-in-law does SEO. Is this one of those things like, once you learn how to do it, it's just easy, right? Like, there's not any real science to it or any real magic. It's just put your ducks in a row, and your brother-in-law can do it just as well as Neon Canvas.
I mean, no, I don't think so.
Right. I mean, it's obviously a softball question.
Of course it is. But if that is true, then why is it not true that a general dentist who takes a weekend course and gets into orthodontics isn't as good as a specialist? Like, we would be very angry at someone suggesting that, and they do suggest that, because it's sort of like the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's like, when you don't know a lot, you can be very confident in your ability to do something. And so, your aunt or your uncle or your cousin or whatever, they might be great at it. There are examples where that is the case. I will just tell you, in taking over a lot of marketing for a lot of practices, it's almost certainly not the case in the majority of circumstances. And so it's the 10,000 hour concept, right? It's how much of an expert could you possibly be when you're doing it as a hobby?
Hey everybody, tickets for Summit 2025 are on sale now. Take a listen to what some of the attendees from Summit 2024 had to say.
This is one of the most unique, most impactful meetings that you can go to as an orthodontist.
It has everything compared to other meetings. Entertainment, the content in the meeting, the speakers, the food.
I learned a lot. It helps the practice, so it really kind of checks all the boxes.
You hope to get something out of it that is going to pay dividends for years to come.
Definitely return on your investment.
We take back a lot to our office.
You get information that you probably don't get easily at any other meting.
So, but that was a question I wanted to ask while you were talking about it. So
yeah,
please,
of course.
Did you want to keep going?
Well, I would just say that is one aspect of it. I do see some companies, and I'm not trying to be like negative or whatever, but it's just to give you sort of a fuller vision of this, is that ads are important. However, they're in a priority below, again, ranking number 1 or number 2. And there's a lot more work that goes into that. That's more future focused. Ads, the thing is, you can set them up in a day or two, get them running, and get results immediately. Okay. That's great, but you're effectively renting that space, right? And as real estate goes, would you rather rent or would you rather own? Well, I would rather own. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'd rather do both. And I always use the monopoly analogy is like, I want to have hotels on every expensive and valuable property. I want Boardwalk. I want Park Place. But at the end of the day, if I can only pick one, I want Boardwalk. Like I want to win the game. And so for me, number one, number two on Google organically is Boardwalk. And so be on Google Ads, but don't be so distracted by it that you ignore how you get ranking number one. And how do you do that? Well, SEO, which is search engine optimization. And that is a very misunderstood word. And as much of a black box as it is to get ranking number one on a term, it's a pretty well understood discipline, let's say, of marketing on how you do that consistently. And yes, each market is different and it's more difficult. And if you've been around for longer, it's easier to get there. But it's just a game and it's very simple. And let's say, just for simplicity's sake, that there are 100 separate words that someone might search when they're thinking about orthodontics. I want to market around what we call content marketing. I want to market around each one of those words such that I, every month, rank higher on each of those words. Of course, it's not that simple. It's a game of tug of war on each one of those 100 words because someone else is doing the same thing. And so maybe you go up a few positions on this one, you go down on another one, and so on and so forth. But cumulatively, I want to be going up on those every month. And I want to keep building that lead. And that sounds like, I don't know, kind of plotting and like, Machiavellian or something. But
It is.
And so it is. I mean, that is the
You
game.
can get really Machiavellian if you wanted to with Google sort of boundaries, to geo, what is it called?
Geofence, or sure.
Yeah, like I've seen some really, really Machiavellian plots with geofencing related to other
and that's not what I'm suggesting. I mean, thankfully, like our business, and yes, it's a profession, and I think of it more as a profession. We're talking about business and marketing. Our business is less competitive than just about anything else. I mean, so at the end of the day, like this, you don't have to be Machiavellian. You don't have to do like gray hat, black hat SEO stuff. Like you don't need to be doing any of that kind of stuff. There's people who they'll spend a bunch of Google ads on, the names of all their competitors, quote unquote competitors or colleagues, however you want to say it. You can do all that stuff, but you really just don't have to. I mean, in most, locations or geographical areas, just do it the right way, put some money into it, be consistent, and be forward and future thinking about how you want to do this. Okay, so SEO is going to be a combination of those active strategies plus your website. And so Google occasionally will release the things they're looking for. In short, it's the obvious stuff. You need to have a website that is built mobile friendly. I mean, all these things we've been saying for years and years and years, but that has regular, fresh content that is marketed around the search terms that people are searching for, right? And it needs to load well. It needs to be fast loading. It needs to be optimized. It needs to be up to date and yada, yada, yada. I mean, all these like really obvious things. And then the architecture of it needs to be sophisticated for search engine optimization. So to say it like this, you could have your cousin build a Wix or Squarespace site or even a WordPress site, but if they don't know all those additional things, and we don't know what we don't know, you're not going to have the ability to rank as high on as many terms as you could if you had an expert build it for you. It's like a car. Your Pinto is not going to beat a Mustang in a race. It's not going to happen.
Invoke a Pinto.
I did. I went with 2 Fords. Yep.
Wow. Going back to the 70s. Look at you, man.
Yeah. I'm an old soul.
But it's been said. It's been said that the more you spend on SEO in competitive environments, the more you'll make, right? That a lot of people just don't spend enough money, don't have enough high enough ad spend. But when do you know that you have enough? Like it does. If I work with Neon Canvas, or let's just say another good company like yours, and will they let me know, hey, look, you spent $2,000 this month. You really don't need to be spending that. Or if I said, look, I want to spend $10,000 a month, there's a limit to what's going to actually spend. So, but I have been told specifically from folks at Neon when we were working with you guys, who I loved, by the way, Glenn, he who spends most wins. And I've heard Gary Vaynerchuk say that he who's willing to spend the most wins. And so, A, do you agree with that? That, look, if you've got the pockets, I was told spend more, you'll make more, right? Just because we've got a searchable kind of title. And when do you know you spent enough?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And it's complicated because nothing's ever just one thing. And for people who make things seem like they're just black and white, they're often either ignorant or simplifying, right, for their own benefit. And I don't do that. I don't play that game. I would say that, yes, of course, there's a saturation point. I think there's also something to say about it being self-limiting. I mean, again, with Google Ads, you were setting a daily budget. If you don't get the clicks, you're not going to spend the money. So there is something to say about having a larger theoretical budget than what you'll actually spend. And I guess I would say, what's the issue if you create more leads? Capacity? I think for most of us, hire another treatment coordinator. What does a treatment coordinator run you these days? Far less than what it would be worth it to get more patients in the door and so on and so forth. So I think a lot of our limitations are self-imposed for what it's worth. There is, though, I think just a limit from a budgetary standpoint. Like 15% of your budget as an orthodontist shouldn't be on marketing, right? Unless you're just trying to like rapidly grow. And so I think there are certain guidelines around what you should be spending. And I'll just say this, like at Neon Canvas, yeah, if you were spending more than you needed or your budget was larger than it needed to be, that should be a conversation that comes up in your monthly report review with your account manager. And in fairness, like Neon Canvas, the way that we're structured, we don't get paid on the Google ad spend. Some agencies do that. And so they are incentivized to then charge more or to get people to spend more on Google ads. You're the one spending it. We're just the ones trying to set it up so that you can be optimized. And again, that is like more a conversation around Google ads. I think the other part of the conversation is how much you should spend on search engine optimization. And a classic thing is, well, I've got a guy, he says, I know a guy, he'll do SEO for $200 a month. And I can just tell you right now, like $200 a month is not going to get you anything. Effectively, that's glorified web hosting. You want systems, you want a group of SEO experts that are, to be honest, again, it's kind of boring. Like they're methodically working on certain things that they know at scale will produce results.
Okay.
Little gnomes that are going in and working on your website, right? You need that.
Okay, cool. Nice. So we've hit that. Where else do we have blind spots? Where else do we need to really be looking? Obviously, you do your analog stuff. Like you said, I hate going to lunches. I'll do lunches with people who are friends of mine who also happen to refer. And even there, it's once a year, maybe. My time is used so many other ways. I see people giving massive gifts at Christmas, which I got away from because they're getting 1,000 gifts from everybody. So I think Jill Allen was the one who taught me that one. I want to give her credit, which was give something special, at a different time. If you want to give a huge gift, whatever it may be, don't give it at Christmas because
totally the noise, they get everything.
It's a 300 channel television at that point. Give it when there's 2 channels, whatever. So other than those things, what are some other things that you guys recommend?
In all that I recommend, I recommend being systematic about it because in the absence of systems, things will not happen consistently. And the real power in marketing is through the consistency and the touch points. Like you said, pick the times like Groundhog Day, Cinco de Mayo, like weird times, and present gifts or goodie baskets in ways that capture the imagination. Again, it's a form of storytelling. And so, Cinco de Mayo, chips and salsas and Mexican Cokes or beers, if you so please, like that will get a team more excited and your branding needs to be all over it. I mean, those kind of like bigger ideas. And for me, it's like if I'm going to do that, I want to be blanketing 60 offices in the same day. You can't be so scattershot about it. Or if I'm going to meet with dentists, it's going to be once a year at a CE event where 200 to 300 of them show up with their teams. Like, again, it's this human capital, this time is the most valuable thing. So how do I optimize that and synergize that to the greatest effect? And so all those things are very important. I think most offices need at least a part-time marketing coordinator whose singular focus is on identifying the offices that are most likely to refer and fostering those relationships. It doesn't have to be you. Find some, if you don't have a big personality, you don't like to do this stuff like me, to be fair, find someone who does. And so we have a former hygienist that does this for us, Brandy, and she's great. And she also needs to be held to a budget. I mean, we need to approach this like business people because you can do all these things and if they feel good and rah, great. But if they don't produce results, they're pointless. And so you need to be changing what it is that you're doing and tweaking things that, that you're doing from time to time to time. Now, of course, I would say the biggest and most important marketing vehicle is inside your practice. You have a captive audience and you have an opportunity to take care of people, to exceed expectations, and to do great work, or you don't. And so those are going to be things that build your practice more than anything. And you have literally, it costs $0 to market to the people inside your practice most often. And so, of course, when you start from scratch, it's a little hard to do internal marketing, right? The numbers don't work in your favor. And so another thing I would just say is if you're a young doctor out there watching, it's slow at first because of course it is. People don't know about you. But with time, they will. And you should be trying everything that you can think of and then be willing to say no to it later when you realize it does not work. And I've done that with plenty of things.
Yeah.
So
Don't, I talk about it a lot. Don't fall into sunk cost bias, right?
there it is. Yeah.
Like people, especially younger docs, you'll take that case that you're treating and 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 treating, and you're miserable every time they walk through the door. And because you've spent so much time, you don't say to them, you know what, this isn't working out for me. Here's your money back. Go find another orthodontist. But you keep going, 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 going. Why? Because you put so much time, energy, and effort in. How could I possibly give up now? And as you work more, you start realizing that the amount of time and money you've put in is not worth the amount of time, money, and aggravation you're going to get going forward. And so, just because you've tried something, you put money in, put money in, put money in, don't keep putting money into something or time if it's just not working. Don't say, well, I've done all this work. It's okay. A great example, website development. You could have somebody developing a website for you. It won't happen with me on Canvas. I can tell you that now. But you have somebody developing a website for you, and you've spent 3 to 5 months, 6 months, 9 months trying to tweak it, trying to get it right. It's never really accurate. It's never really what you want it to be. The contact us form doesn't really work properly. The video or the ad, whatever, it doesn't rank, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Don't fall into the trap. And with the SEO, oh, look, you moved up from number 78 for orthodontics, Louisville, to number 64. Look at that. That's like a 10 to 50% jump. Just at some point say, you know what? Cut the money, cut the bait, and run. Just go. Go to somebody else. Find somebody. And just don't fall in for sunk cost bias. Agree with that?
I do. And I think the corollary to that, corollary, is that the right word?
Corollary.
I hope.
It depends what you're about to say.
Well, we'll see. Is just because you're successful doesn't mean that you need to rake your chips away. We see that a lot too, and that's personality driven. But some people see some success and they're like, okay, now I can keep it and I don't have to do it. And then if you track kind of their trajectory, of course, it sort of starts to go down. So, and obviously that feels like a very self-serving statement, but I agree with what you said. And I would also not push back, but just say that this is not a thing that you do for a year and then you're able to not do it again. I mean, if you want to be competitive and you want to continue to grow, which you may not, and nothing is saying you have to, but if you want to maintain growth and continue to grow, and that's the unique thing about orthodontics, that's why marketing is so important. Every 2 years, you need a new stream of patients. I mean, because they come for 2 years and then they're gone. Okay. Unless you like to spend 4.5 years on every patient.
Rolling 2 years. Yeah. It's a rolling 2 years.
So,
every single day, the one who came to you 2 years ago is hopefully gone. Now you need a new one, right? Every single day, it's a rolling 2 year.
Yeah. Yeah. So it makes marketing really important. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think? Google reviews? You want to do that?
Yeah. Let's hit.
Sorry, it's tough. I knew as I said it, it was like,
you, Kyle. I'm the guest here on TDO Live. I love this.
I'm the captain now. Anyway,
take over, Scotty.
Yeah.
Worse than that, he's dead, Jim. Feel free, take over. Let's go hit Google reviews because I think that is something that. But I think people are getting much smarter about it. I think it's become common knowledge now that we're going to jump into Google reviews, but I want to ask you this question. I'm a young doc. I just started my practice. I opened my doors last week. I've got one location. I've got 30 quote unquote competitors, if you see it that way. I think your competitor is really the trip to Hawaii and Disneyland and all the other things that people are spending money on, but we can get that another time. I just opened my doors, super competitive area. I have a good website. I have a great I'm working with Neon Canvas, got a great website. I got somebody really looking after my SEO, my AdWords. It's working well there. I think Google is probably the next place to go, right? Like Google reviews, right? Getting reviews, it's free, it's easy, it's quick. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it really increases it helps with your ranking as well, does it not? Or is that a fallacy?
Yes and no. I will say, and I have a stat, this will be the only thing from my note sheet that I'll share, but 93% of consumers say online reviews impact the purchasing decisions.
I heard 72% of statistics are made up. No, 73%.
This was not made up on the spot. Yeah, but it probably is true. No, I think we know that. We all look at reviews, and it's okay to have a 1-star review and so on and so forth. And the era of getting the 1-star review taken down is pretty much gone, and we can get into that. But reviews are powerful. I think the thing we know for sure is the map pack section of Google, which again is one of the channels on that 12-channel TV. And it is going to be a product of the geography of the person searching, their search history, a bunch of other stuff. But also Google reviews do factor into that. And yes, Google reviews can be cheap. As cheap as free. And I would just say it like this. It's the ask that makes the difference.
Amen.
And so there was a Japanese restaurant I ate at every single day when I was a young associate. So I'd work in a pediatric dental office doing orthodontics, and then I had my own practice to try to make a little bit of money because the practice wasn't making any money. And I would go to the same place. I'd order the same thing. They knew what I was going to order. They didn't even ask at a certain point. It was this delicious bento box. The place has since closed. Very sad. And I never gave them a review, but it was my favorite restaurant.
If you gave a review, maybe they'd still be open.
Well, okay, fair enough. This is on me, but I don't practice there any longer. I would never eat there, so that's not my problem. That sounds terrible. I love them. I miss them. We should reconnect. Anyway, the point is that if they had come by at any point and said, "Hey, would you mind leaving me a review?" Like a little card with a QR code, done. And it would have been seriously 700 words of "I just love this place. It's the best. You got to come." Maybe they still would have closed. But the point is, you just have to ask. You have to ask happy people, and it doesn't have to be like a majorly disarming ask. It's, have you been happy with your experience here? I hope you have. And then if they say, yeah, it's been great. You know what would be really helpful for us, if you don't mind, could you leave us a 5-star review? It would mean the world to us. I mean, that kind of conversation. You find someone that sits at your front desk that has that kind of bubbly personality, who's willing to make the ask, and you incentivize it, it'll get done. It's not any more complicated than that. You don't need a fancy app, in my opinion.
And I agree. It's interesting because I find my assistants have been really a big key in helping get Google reviews. And in my office, my team knows if you've been there more than one day, there's 2 things you better be doing. 3 really. One is walking a patient back. You need to be side to side to them. You can't be walking 10 feet in front of a patient and leaving them alone.
Yeah, it's tough. Number 2, laughing at Glenn's jokes. Okay. And then number 3.
That's not even, that's a law, right? No, but number 1 is you got to go out to the reception area. And this is, if they're younger docs listening, do not have that assistant stand at the threshold of the reception area. You don't have a waiting room. You got a reception area. They go into the reception area and they stand there and go, Kyle, like Bueller, right? And like every medical office we go in, it's cold, it's distant, we can't stand it. And you already say to yourself before you even come back, this is going to suck. And go up to them, shake their hand, say hello. Hey, Kyle, I'm Susie, your assistant today. Are you ready to come back? That's number 1. Number 2 is, if you're waiting for me for any reason whatsoever, and I really try not to keep any assistants waiting, but it happens, sit that patient up. Sit them up. Do not have them laying flat on their back like a fish, right? Splayed out like that. Sit them up and make them feel like a human being. Get their dignity back. And if you're waiting, go knee to knee, eye to eye, and sit there and go, hey, by the way, while we're waiting for Dr. Krieger, how's your braces journey, or how's your Invisalign journey been going? That's it. Because if it's bad, you want to hear it, right? If it's good, you want to hear it. And if it's bad, you go, well, this is taking longer than I expected. I've been doing this now for 4 months. And, Dr. Krieger said it would only take 3 weeks to get my teeth straight. And right, it's your chance to correct that at share. Or if they say, no, it's been amazing, which is what most people will tell most orthodontists, then it's an opportunity to just simply say, it really mean the world to us if you give us a 5-star review. Just like you said, it has to start with that sort of scripted first line, like you said, right? How's your braces journey going? How has the experience been for you so far, like you said? Because if your team is not scripted, they won't go off script on this, most of them. They don't know how to ask. They're afraid to ask. You can incentivize it. But are you a believer that the doctor needs to be the role model in this one? That if the doctor themselves is not asking, it's hard to ask the team to ask? Or do you believe, some doctors don't want to ask? It doesn't matter. Let the team do all the asking.
Yeah, we may disagree here, but I don't ask. For whatever reason, it's uncomfortable for me. And so it pretty much, I'd say 95% is Leanne, who works at our front desk. And she's just kind of taken it as her role and responsibility. Like, if we fill up a jar with marbles, it's a Dino Watt idea, we get to go on a team vacation. And so every review gets a marble or 2. And so she owns it. She shares it in the group every time she does it, and she crushes it. So you may not have that person. It may need to be you. In the past, it's been me. I mean, I've asked before. It feels a little transactional for me in a way that I'm somewhat uncomfortable with. And so I prefer that it's delegated out.
It's okay. I mean, again, I would.
It's okay.
It's okay, Kyle. It's all right, brother. I love you, man.
I can't do it all.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't really ask often, but when I find there's a dearth of reviews and the team just isn't asking for a while or whatever, I just say to them in the morning meeting, hey guys, pick a patient in the schedule today. Let me know who it is, and I will ask them. I just want to show you a random patient. Yep. I'm going to sit down, and they hear me, and I just, hey, by the way, how's your journey been going so far? And they go, great. I say, if you wouldn't mind, it would mean the world to us if you scan that QR code and give us a 5-star review. And the team hears and sees that and goes, you know what? He's putting his money where his mouth is. Now, granted, not everybody's comfortable with that. And I get that. And, I think we all have to leverage, like you said earlier, we have to leverage our strengths. What do we love doing? What do we, I have no problem with sales. I mean, I have no problem walking up to somebody and saying, hey, do you mind? But at that point, I recognize not everybody is built the same way. And
yeah.
Just while we're on Google reviews and before we wrap this up, is there any truth to that rumor, that sort of folk legend that went around for years? Be careful getting too many reviews, because if you get too many reviews on one day from the same, they're all logged into your Wi-Fi or they're all in the same geo area, right? If you get too many reviews, Google's going to flag it and you're not going to have any reviews. Is there any truth to that one?
I think it's largely an old wives' tale. No offense to old wives intended.
Or it could be old for new wives, right? It could be an old thing.
Correct. Former.
It doesn't have to be old wife.
Correct. Yes. And yeah, sure.
It could be old, but for new wives.
The number of times I've heard that objection raised is far greater than the number of times I've actually witnessed it. That being said, I think it's, you can make it a part of your protocol to ask them to get off the wireless at your office before they leave the review, and then it's on their IP or their cellular, so I think that, as with most orthodontists, we're highly analytical, highly black and white focused. That's what served us well. That's what allowed us to commit to 11 years of schooling to get where we're at, and so on and so forth. We want to make sure that every box is checked and everything is researched and every rock is turned over before we proceed with something. But at a certain level, this is a Gary Vaynerchuk thing, 1 is greater than 0. So I would say get the reviews and then worry about those things that might happen later, if and when they happen, which they probably won't.
Right. And I will tell you 2 things that I know we want to talk about. We'll make this really quick because it's not.
Yeah.
You're going to get a negative review at some point. You're going to. There's 2 kinds of orthodontic practices: those that have never had a negative review, and those that have one, and those who haven't practiced long enough. Right. You're going to get one at some point.
Yep.
Don't freak out. Right. Best tips. You want to go through it real fast? Best tips for when you get that 1-star review.
Yeah, the best thing, and do as I say, not as I do, because these things really bother me. I mean, really bother me. It can ruin a few days of my life. It actually, at an Orthopreneurs summit a couple years ago, I got the worst review I've ever received, and it hung over me and weighed me down the whole weekend. So I, too, am human like you, and we did not react to it probably the best way that we could. So the first thing I would say is take it in stride to the degree that you can and the best you can, and do not respond immediately, and certainly don't respond in a negative way. You should know that there is no longer a great way to get reviews taken down. There is no one at Google that's sitting behind a red button and a green button and is able to decide whether that stays or that goes. You used to be able to report it enough times and it would get taken down, with some exceptions, right? The average 1-star review doesn't matter if they never started in your practice, doesn't matter if they're exaggerating, and no, there's no way to take legal recourse unless you're crazy. The best way to handle it is to have a human conversation with this person over the phone. And my opinion is it should be the doctor, and you call them and say, Martha, my dear, I saw your review, and I just want to say how sorry I am that was your experience, and say effectively, could you tell me more about it? And your goal there is to listen to them, to hear them out. Most people will not assume that is going to happen. And most people that are leaving these reviews may be a little crazy, but they may just be going through life like all of us, and they may have just had a really tense moment. It may be related to finances. It may be related to something completely different. It's like the man or woman who comes home from work and kicks the dog, and the dog chases the cat, and the cat, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And you just happen to be collateral damage in a day that was not their best. And you hear them out, and then effectively it's another ask. Is there anything that I can do to make this right for you? And to whatever they say, it will be a reasonable enough request such that will most likely get the review down. Now, I've had it before where it becomes this sort of game where it's you do all these things and it's the review's still up. Sometimes you just have to wait it out. I had a review like that. It was halfway through this treatment and it was nothing I did wrong. It was a misunderstanding, and I tried to explain that. But it wasn't until she finished treatment that she went and changed the review.
Interesting.
And then there's plenty where I've tried to do this, and you get them on the phone and you can tell they're not changing this review. They are dead set and committed to this.
Yeah. And you know what? Bury it with good reviews. Just bury it with
good reviews. Yeah. I would say for every 5 1-star reviews you get, 4 will will be taken down by that approach. And you should never get into arguing. It's not about being right, and it's fun to be right. I love to be right. But in that, they have the leverage. That's every negotiation ever, is someone has the leverage, someone doesn't. The truth is you don't have the leverage. Whether you think you should or not, it does not matter. And so what's the leverage? Hearing them out, recovering, making it right for them, paying whatever it takes to get it down, because whatever amount that you pay them or whatever you do to make it right will be worth less than the value of getting that review taken down, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or call them and tell them to kick rocks and all that, and then it'll stay,
Kick rocks. I like that one.
Yeah.
So as we wrap it up, I think the takeaway message from this one is, once you decide to do something, just do it. Consistency. Like Jerry Seinfeld once said, when a comedian came up to him and said, "Hey, you know what? What do you got to do to become a great comedian?" He says, "Write. Just sit down and write. Every day, write jokes, 10, 15, 20 minutes. If you don't sit down and write, you'll never be a great comedian. If just whatever you're doing, just do it. Just do it and do it and do it. Don't stop doing it. And if it's not working, pivot, right? Switch from whatever you're doing to something different. Don't get stuck in it, but don't use that as an excuse. Well, I tried SEO, it didn't work, right? No, which by the way, sounded very Bill Maher-esque just now. But if you tried something and it didn't work, great. Keep trying it until you're absolutely sure something doesn't work. Stick with it. You could change companies, you could change tactics, you could change the way you spend, what have you, but don't give up. Just keep going, because as a new guy or new gal in town, you've got to outwork everybody. You've got to outwork everybody. It's the only way it's going to happen, because referral patterns are established. SEO has already been established for a long time. You're the new guy or gal in town. You're going to have to outwork everybody. If you're coming out of ortho residency and your belief is, I'm going to get Google reviews, SEO, and I'm going to dance my butt off on TikTok, and I'm going to get everybody referring to me, and I'm going to be in the black within 6 months, I'm here to tell you it's probably not going to work out that way. And so anything you want to add to that, Kyle, before we close it out?
No, and we don't have to go into all the details, but the other thing I would say is that along those lines of consistency, it is all systems, and you can do all this work, but if you don't consistently schedule them and respond to them and get them into your practice, it was all vanity. It's all, what does it matter how many people clicked on this or filled out a form if you don't have a good system for scheduling them? And then, of course, there's a whole conversation around the sales process. What happens inside the exam room does not stay inside the exam room. Okay, so that's a very important part. So obviously, as with any conversation, there's a lot more to it. But I think it really just comes back to strategic planning and being systematic and consistent and staying disciplined. I was so hungry when I first got out of school, of course, because I was literally hungry. I mean, rice and beans don't fill the stomach. And you lose that along the way. And when you lose that, it's good to be in communities like, and this is some glad handing here, but like Orthopreneurs RD, like having a tribe of people who are also hungry. And when you get together, it kind of fuels that for you. So it's a cycle. And I think a lot of people get complacent and get lazy. And that's okay. Like there are going to be stages of life and career like that. But if you want to continue growing, and if you want to grow at a rapid pace, it's going to require investment in these vehicles of growth. And this is just one of them. And I think it's a good one. And
Right on,
Dr.
man.
Time marketing doesn't take a lot of your time. So I like that.
Yeah, I do like that. For younger docs or even experienced docs, hopefully this gets them thinking a little differently about the way they do things. We tend to fall into patterns, and it's time to break out of that pattern. Maybe it's working. Maybe if it's working, great, keep it going. If it's not working, right, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So definitely a shout out to Neon Canvas. I have no financial interest whatsoever in them. Kyle certainly does, but I still consider and tell you that if you're looking for a new SEO, website, reputation, online stuff, AdWords, give them a call. I think, if I'm not mistaken, you do some sort of free analysis or something like that.
Yeah. So my best recommendation, I'm a fact finder. You need to meet with a few companies and see what they're about. You need to talk to your friends, see what they've used, and so on and so forth. Their advice may be terrible, but you need to consider different voices, because somewhere in that average, you will find what's going to be best for you. But there's a free digital marketing audit that you can do of your specific geographical area that you're going to go to. And so that is neoncanvas.com/audit, AUDIT. And there's Tom Fury on our team. He's excellent. He's our VP of growth. He will go one-on-one with you through all this data and approach it in an analytical way. we are not a company that's trying to do a quick sale or say, hey, if you sign up right now, you're going to do this. I mean, we want you to understand why it's worth working with us. And we have different levels of investment based on the size and scope of your practice. And so it's not true that we are the most expensive. There are different options for a startup practice, for instance. A good chunk of our client base is smaller practices, and that's great. And we can support those. And then, of course, we have some very large multi-location practices. So give us a shot, neoncanvas.com or neoncanvas.com/audit. You should go through that process if you're planning to start a practice.
Right on. Well, thank you, Kyle, again for being here. And
thanks for having me.
And anybody out there, you can find him all over the web, all over social media. And again, wishing you a great day and appreciate your time here today.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, everybody.